Hey everyone, today I want to talk about the DJI Mavic Mini. So let's put some chill music on and let's get into it. This is episode 1 of Gear Review. So the main question I want to answer in this review is, can anyone actually fly this drone? Can a complete beginner fly this drone and be okay with it? Can it come out with good footage? The quick answer to that is yes and no, because I was a complete beginner when I first got this drone and I crashed it on my first flight. Didn't break it fortunately, but I did crash it into a tree, and then I also crashed it and broke it about a month later and had to send it away to DJI for fixing it. So I'll talk a little bit about that briefly as well. And my experience of their kind of repairs and all that kind of stuff. But let's kind of talk about the features of the drone first. So in terms of features, the drone retails for £369, and that is for the drone itself and also a controller. You can pay an extra £100, so £469, and get the Fly More combo. In that combo you get obviously the drone and the controller, as well as some extras such as a hard shell carry case, so this one here, which is really good, and then also this kind of battery storage pack. As far as I'm aware, it doesn't actually charge the batteries while they're in them, but it does kind of tell you how much charge your batteries have got left, and you can hold an extra 2 batteries in there, which you obviously get with the Fly More combo as well. So you get a total of 3 batteries, which keeps you flying for, a total of about an hour and a half, which is crazy. So this drone is only 249 grams, and there's reasons why that's important, which we'll go into in a little bit. But it's quite a feat of engineering that DJI have managed to get this down to 249 grams, considering all the features it's got. First, I kind of want to talk about the camera sensor before we go on to why 249 grams is important. This sensor is the same sensor that's on the Mavic Air, its bigger brother, but it has slightly less features as DJI has kind of limited it to what it can do, which makes sense because why would you buy the Mavic Air if you could buy its cheaper Mavic Mini and get the same features? So that does make sense, I guess. Hey guys, it's Editor Arran from the future here. Since recording that review, the Mavic Air 2 has been released by DJI. So this looks amazing. It's obviously an update to the Mavic Air, and it's about the same price range. So £769 for the base model, £949 for the Fly More combo. But I would still recommend the Mavic Mini for anyone who's just getting into drones, because there's a massive price difference there between the Mavic Air 2 and the Mavic Mini. But apart from that, I just want to update you guys on that. But let's get back to the video. So this sensor is a 1/2.3 inch sensor. It can shoot 2.7K video at 30 frames per second, and it can shoot 1080p video at 60 frames per second. It's got a field of view of 83 degrees, and it has a fixed aperture of 2.8. The maximum bitrate for video on this is 40 megabits per second, so it's quite low, but the footage that comes out of it is actually really nice, in my view anyway. It's perfectly adequate for social media and YouTube because that compression brings it right down anyway, the quality, so it works really well. The camera is on a 3-axis gimbal, and this means that your footage comes out extremely smooth, even in kind of windy conditions. I flew this in Norway under really windy conditions on top of a mountain, and it still came out really smooth. The drone is quite small, so you can't really fly it in extremely windy conditions, and it'll get chucked about, or you might not be able to fly it back. That's something to be aware of. So I wouldn't recommend flying it in really windy conditions, but it can get really smooth footage out of it, regardless of if it's getting chucked all over the place, which is quite good. Now in terms of drone photography, this can take 12 megapixel photos. It can only do JPEG, no RAW unfortunately, and it can take them at an aspect ratio of 4:3 or 16:9 depending on what you want to do. So for flight time, DJI says this can fly up to 30 minutes on one battery. I've realistically had about 25 minutes comfortably on one battery, which is more than enough to shoot one location comfortably, or maybe 2 locations on one battery. And bear in mind, if you get the Fly More combo, then you'll have triple that time to shoot, which is fantastic. So it holds up really solidly in flight time. In terms of range, DJI says that the EU version can go up to 2 kilometers. I've not actually tried that practically to try and get 2 kilometers out of this drone. I've been out at 500 meters comfortably and there's been no issues with transmission, but bear in mind that the range will be reduced when you're in busy areas like a city where there's a lot of interference from Wi-Fi and things like that, so just bear that in mind. This has a max speed of 29 miles per hour, and again, that depends on wind conditions. If you've got wind behind you, you can probably fly a little bit faster than that. If you've got wind in front of you, you won't be able to fly that fast. I've actually gone faster when there's been wind behind the drone as well, but wind does affect this drone quite a lot, so just bear that in mind. You won't probably get the max speed out of the drone if there is windy conditions. There are also 2 optical vision sensors or positioning sensors underneath the drone just here. And these basically hold the drone's position when you're either flying inside or outside with the assistance of GPS. And that works really well in my experience. I haven't really flown it indoors that much because I don't want to crash it, which I will. We've got a small flat, so it's probably not the best place to fly a drone, but it does work and it works well. The drone also has 4 quick shots. What these quick shots are is basically DJI's AI or artificial intelligence flying the drone for you in a certain predetermined path. So it tracks a subject basically and can do these predetermined paths while tracking that subject. So these are the droney, the rocket, the helix, and the circle. So these all look really good. Just be careful when you're using these because it's quite sometimes a little bit delayed when you try and stop it, and that is actually how I crashed my drone. So I'll get onto that a little bit later as well. So let's talk about the pros of this drone. I mentioned before this is 249 grams, and what that means is that you don't have to register the drone with the Civil Aviation Authority in the UK. It might be the same in other countries as well, but I recommend checking the drone laws in that country. This means you don't have to pay £9 a year to register this drone, and you don't have to register at all, which is quite good. But what that doesn't mean is that you don't have to abide by drone laws. You still have to abide by drone laws and have to make sure you're flying responsibly when you are flying this drone. Just make sure you're doing that, because basically it ruins the hobby for everyone else if you get caught doing something you're not meant to, and then that could potentially cause drone laws to be increased and ruin the hobby for everyone else. So just bear that in mind when you're flying your drone. The main reason for me that the 249 gram weight is important is because this is light, it's compact, and when you fold it up, fold the legs up like you can here, you can fit it into quite a small bag and take it, wherever you're traveling, and it won't kind of impact you. You can take it on a plane as well, so that's really important to me, I think, for traveling and taking it to when you're on holiday, going to new places. If you want to get some drone videography, you can do it. My next pro is that this drone is easy to fly. Obviously, I prefaced this video by saying, can a complete beginner fly this drone? And the answer is yes. You just have to be careful. You just have to be aware of objects around you, and if you're flying it for the first time, I'd highly recommend just going into an extremely open space like a field and testing out what the drone can do and how you can fly it. Another thing I really like about this drone is the fact they include the controller in the box. In previous models such as the DJI Spark, they didn't include a controller, which I thought was quite an oversight. You have to use your phone to control it, which I don't think is the best or safest way to control a drone, to be honest with you. But this controller is really nice. It folds, everything folds out. You've actually got your joysticks connected at the bottom here, which you can take out and put onto the controller and take off once you're finished, so it's nice and compact. And you just extend the antennae out and you can fly it nice and easily. And your phone just slots into the these fold out bits here nice and easily and works really well. So I do like the controller, and I think that's something they should continue to include in kind of, budget or value drones out there in the future. They've also made the DJI Fly app, which is a brand new app just for the Mavic Mini, really easy to use. It's nice and simple, nice and clean, and it's really accessible for beginners. If you're brand new to videography or drone photography or videography, it's nice and easy to use, easy to connect to your drone, and everything just kind of works. So that's nice. Another thing I mentioned was the fact that the battery life is really good on this drone. With 25 minutes flight time easily, you can get your shots at one location as well as another location if you want to, just on one battery. And with the Fly More combo with the 3 batteries, you get that extended flight time, which means you can fly it really all day as you need to, which is really good. So when I was talking about the features, I mentioned that the drone has a low bit rate of 40 megabits per second. And while some might see that as a negative, I kind of see it as a positive because it doesn't fill up your memory card really quickly. I'm actually using a 128GB micro SD with this drone, and I've never filled it up, nowhere near filling it up, which is great. So you don't have to actually worry about memory, which is fantastic. This next one's particularly relevant for people who are new or beginners to drone flying. The DJI Care Plan is actually only £35 for the year, which I think is definitely worth it, considering I already crashed my drone once and I had to go and send it away for repair. That only cost me a small fee because I did have the DJI Care Plan. This gives you up to 2 replacements a year for a small fee rather than having to pay the full price for your drone, for a new drone basically. So I think it's definitely worth it if you're a beginner. The only thing is, it does take quite a while to send your drone away and get it back, just because for the UK specifically, the nearest repair centre is actually in the Netherlands, so it does take quite a while to get the drone there, and then for them to analyse it and then fix it and then send it back to you. Additionally, when I sent mine back, they actually sent me a faulty unit back, so I had to wait probably about a month and a half to get back flying again, which was kind of rubbish. So just bear that in mind. The service isn't amazing, but they did get it to me eventually, and that's the main thing, I guess. The next thing is that the charging kind of carry case for the batteries is really good. It's really useful for actually charging the batteries. You don't have to charge them in the drone. You can take them all out, and this actually charges them all by whichever one's the most dead. They'll start with that and then kind of move on to the next one. So you've always got reasonably full batteries if you don't have time to charge them fully, for example. This is really good, and it obviously comes with the Fly More combo, which I mentioned before, and that is another pro for this drone. This carry case is fantastic. You can fit your drone, your controller, and the battery carry case in it nice and simply in here, here, and here. And underneath in these boxes, you have things like extra propellers and other accessories that you need for the drone in case, for any reason, you have to change them. It's really convenient and really nice, and I'd absolutely recommend getting the Fly More combo if you are thinking of buying this drone. So now let's cover some of the cons or negatives of this drone. There aren't really that many to it, to be honest. I think it's a really good drone, but it's good to kind of note the things that I don't really like about it that much. So first of all, it's kind of a really minor one. When you fold the drone up, you have these flappy propellers, which are really annoying, and I wish there was something you could do to lock them in place so that they're not flapping about all over the place. It's just quite annoying, and if you maybe put it into your bag without the carry case, say you didn't get the Fly More combo, these could get bent, they could get warped and things like that if they're put in the wrong way. So it's just kind of an oversight, I think, that DJI just didn't think about. So there's something to note. It's kind of minor, but could be annoying. It's also not got very solid build quality. These arms are quite flimsy, and when I crashed my drone and broke it, the thing that broke was the arm. It was actually only about 10 feet up when I crashed it. It fell the wrong way basically and broke the arm. So just bear that in mind. It doesn't have the best build quality. It's definitely not bad because it does what it shouldn't be crashing this drone. It's not designed to be crashed. So just bear that in mind, I think. Another thing is that this drone obviously can't handle strong winds, as I mentioned before. What I'd recommend is probably just don't take it out on a windy day. You won't really be able to get the footage you want. You also might lose the drone if you do that. So just avoid strong winds if you can. Also, the photo quality on this drone isn't the best. I just like to pixel peep. I'm quite used to looking at photos and being like, I just want to see the quality. I want to see how good that photo looks. And they don't look the best. I mean, they're perfectly fine for social media because that compresses these photos down anyway. So if you just want to get some really nice social media shots and things like that, then this drone is perfect for that. And it's just if you're going to be posting it, or if you're going to put it as a background on your computer, for example, or something like that, it's not going to look fantastic, in my opinion. Next one is kind of relevant for me. There's no obstacle avoidance sensors on this drone. There's obviously positioning sensors on the bottom, but there's no obstacle avoidance sensors as you get on maybe the Mavic Air or the Mavic Pro. So bear that in mind when you're flying this drone. Really bear that in mind, because as I said, you can crash this drone as I did. So don't be like me, don't crash the drone. Just be careful when you're flying this, as it won't stop if you fly at a tree. There's also no manual video settings on this drone, so in the photo mode you can actually change the settings with the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed, and you can do all that manually if you want to, but you can't change it in video. All you can do is kind of change the exposure value. Hi again guys, it's Editor Arran here. So DJI have actually released a software update for the Mavic Mini since I've been editing this video. So version 01.00.0500 brings some really important updates such as manual video controls. So that means manual exposure controls as well as manual white balance controls, which you didn't have before. It also brings 24 frames per second at 2.7K and 1080p, which are a really important update to get that kind of cinematic look when you're shooting your videos with the drone. In the corner here, I'm going to link to a video by Billy Kyle who really discusses all these changes and why they're important as well. So have a look at that. But otherwise, let's get back to the video. I don't like this drone can't shoot 4K. Considering it's got the same sensor as the Mavic Air, it's kind of annoying that it can't shoot 4K. I can understand why DJI have done it, but it's definitely going to be a con for me or a negative because it probably is capable of shooting 4K. There's also no specific hyperlapse mode or time-lapse mode. You can shoot at intervals, but it's not specifically like a hyperlapse mode to kind of get that flying shot really fast. You can obviously just speed up your footage, but it won't maybe look as good as if you did a hyperlapse. Another thing to note is that you actually can't see this drone if you're flying in overcast weather. And obviously in Scotland we have a lot of overcast weather, quite a lot, so it's quite difficult to see this drone sometimes when you're flying in those conditions because it kind of blends in with the sky, considering the colour it is, this bright colour. So if it was like a black or darker colour, you'd be able to see it a bit better. There's also no active track in this drone where there is in the Mavic Air and Mavic Pro. Basically, if you don't know, active track can basically track a subject as they walk or track a car, for example, and the drone will follow it using its AI, artificial intelligence, and follow that subject. But this drone doesn't have it. But it can actually kind of do it in quick shots. It does track a subject in quick shots, but that's obviously only for a limited period of time, so it's not the best. But I can understand why they didn't put it in, because if they did, people would be tracking themselves walking along and then the drone would just fly into a lamppost and crash and break. So I can understand why DJI didn't put it in here. Finally, for the kind of negatives, this drone doesn't have the best dynamic range. Obviously it's not a massive sensor, so you can understand why it won't have great dynamic range. For those of you that don't really know, dynamic range is basically the range between your darkest shadows and your highlights. And if you've got good dynamic range, you'll be able to see a lot of detail in the shadows and a lot of detail in the highlights. But with poor dynamic range, if you try and get detail in the shadows, then the highlights will end up being blown out and you won't be able to see anything in the highlights. So this drone isn't great for that, but again, something you wouldn't really expect from the price or the value, and what you do get in terms of value from this drone is pretty good. So in this episode, I wanted to answer the question, can a complete beginner fly the Mavic Mini? The answer is absolutely yes, but they need to be aware of the limitations of this drone, such as the lack of obstacle avoidance. It's clear that DJI have made some sacrifices in creating this drone to get it down to that 249 gram weight limit and also the low price tag of £369. So fundamentally, I would highly recommend this drone for beginners or enthusiasts who maybe want to get some really decent drone footage for their social media channels or their YouTube channels. For beginners, I would highly recommend getting some kind of cover or insurance for this drone to ensure that you don't have to pay the full price for the drone to replace it if you do crash it. It's not easy to crash, but it's possible to crash it as a beginner, so just bear that in mind. So this is the first episode of a brand new series called Gear Review, where I want to review some of the budget filmmaking gear that I use to film things like this. So whether that's the M50 that I'm filming on, Canon M50, maybe it's the lens that's on the front of the camera, maybe it's the microphone on top of the camera, or maybe it's the lighting setup that I'm using here. But I want to talk about these in different episodes and talk about my experiences with them, maybe the things I like about them, things I don't like about them, and the practical uses that I use them for. So if you're new around here and you like filmmaking and camera tech and you want to keep up to date with the latest episodes of Gear Review, please hit that subscribe button down below and notification bell to keep up to date with the latest episodes as they come out. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure and thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.